Welcome everybody. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing.
Well, TCR TJ is the Season 13 Golden Class Champion for Trinity Competitive Racing.
Oh, let's go, dude! Yes!
Chibar on the podium! He's on it by a 10! Gentlemen, side by side through one. And silent. Oh, and Seabreeze gets a half spin.
Let's fucking go!
Wheel bumping. DRS enable, let's do it. And Captain Blade battling it out for position. Captain Blade. Ickle, what the? Then McChicken goes around and he also makes
rewind down the front straight. Oh my god.
I gotta check the heart rate.
Why do we do this? Because of nights like this.
Welcome everybody to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing, and welcome to the Racing Debrief, TCR's podcast where we combine the world of e-racing, sim racing, and TCR with real-life motorsports and Formula One, a true racing enthusiast listen. Your host, C. Freeze, alongside co-hosts Chibar and D'Angelo behind the dish as a producer, and we have special guest, Golden Class Driver of the Haas of Sir Charles. This is episode number 13, lucky number 13, and we're recording on October 23rd, 2022, and let's get into it. So we had the United States Grand Prix for Formula One today, literally probably less than a half hour ago, and that'll be the main topic of discussion. But yeah, welcome back, Chibar and D'Angelo, and welcome initially, Sir Charles. How are we feeling after that Coda race?
Thanks for having me back on. Welcome, Sir Charles and D'Angelo. I thought that was fun.
I would have to agree. But very entertaining back half of the race with all the shenanigans that was going on in the pit lane, and Red Bull Constructors Champions. I'm a Red Bull guy, so I'm happy.
Shenanigans in the pit lane and on the back straight.
That is true.
Fernando was taking flight. We're trying to.
But he almost got out of there. He almost left the circuit.
Yeah, that was very close to being very bad. And then he did. Where did he finish? Did he finish sixth or seventh? I think he finished seventh.
Sixth or seventh, yeah.
Because Lando passed him late, so I think he got seventh.
Yep, seventh, which is still crazy for him to get points in that regard. The car was literally falling off as his I think it was his right side mirror fell off trying to get to the end of the race.
Is it bad luck if your rear view mirror falls off and cracks?
I mean, it was like hanging on by a thread for like 20 laps, and it finally broke. So.
Because he hit the barrier hard too, I think, and I'm
he was
surprised
lucky to hit the wall like flush and not on that corner. He was pretty close.
Yeah. When we saw it a couple years ago, or I think it was like Briscoe or Truex hit it in the NASCAR race, like right on that opening there, just shot him right back across the track. Like that would have been. I mean, it was scary enough as it was with Stroll spinning in the middle of the track, but you know.
Imagine he bounced like NASCAR does.
Yeah.
Well, it was almost. He was just almost at that weird angle, which could have been really, really bad. It could have really hurt the car there, or him. It could have been. You never know. But
yeah, just
everyone did well to avoid. Yeah,
it was like hurt his back or something. He just sucked it up because he's Fernando Alonso.
He's an old git. He doesn't give a damn.
He got the points, okay, but he even beat his teammates.
Yeah.
And he started in the pit lane today. Although, I did want to say one thing, because before we get to the good stuff in the second half, it was cool to see another packed crowd at the
Circuit of the Americas.
Today. It was cool.
Crowd was electric.
It was also cool. I don't know if they've ever had it before, but it was cool. They had that big American flag right at the top of turn one. and I thought that was like the most American thing you can do.
They
Is
also had
just
Oh, did you watch qualifying yesterday?
they also had a
With the
huge
sunset.
I did not watch qualifying. What
It
happened?
looked,
there?
it looked like a scene out of Top Gun when they're coming down the hill going towards, I think it's turn 10 or 11, that hairpin down the hill. It looks like a
Yeah.
scene right out of Top Gun with the sunset.
They also had
edit.
they had a just as big Texan flag somewhere through the S's as well.
Yes, I saw that too. I
Yeah, I
like
think
that
towards the
with
end
the
of the first
helicopter. With
I-
the
I saw an
helicopter
edit on-
view.
I saw an edit online of like that shot of the car with the flag in the background with the sunset silhouette, and they put the Top Gun music over it. It was,
Yeah, I
had
watched
some
that
great
this morning.
shots. It was a good looking race.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good looking, and I like that they had that. There's just the most American thing you can do riding up turn one, which is like the most unique corner, literally most unique turn one, I think, really ever because of the elevation you get, and it just provides some really good overtakes. We saw Norris have a lot in this race in turn one, and he was able to get up to sixth. So he got some good points ahead of Alpine. But at the start of the Grand Prix, I even forget that Sainz even started this race. He had one of his Sainz days, kind of like Imola. Not that it was his fault, but man, he right out of the race, and I'm surprised that contact with Russell was enough to put him out. I think he had a water leak or something. So, man, such bad luck. I think you know what he was trying to do in the first corner. He was trying to like get a switchback on under Max to avoid the dirty air, or just go back towards the left-hand side of the track to get just naturally. That's how you do. And Russell was side by side with Lewis, so it
See,
just wasn't going to work.
If Carlos Sainz had done more F1 2022 5-lap open lobbies, he would have known not to do that.
You must leave the space. Where are you going? But like,
Well, I know people are going to be filming on the inside there, but anyway.
like, Sainz did kind of switch back a little tight, maybe, but George, with no signs, I don't think George was making that turn. He was going wide. It's like perpendicular.
Yeah,
to
but
the
that's
ground.
kind of expected too, right?
On the
So like
inside
turn
line.
turn one, Coda, like that whoever's on the inside is always going to rush out towards the end of the track, and that outside person is always going to be expected to go off track limits. That's just kind of the nature of it. But since it was two, and then only Sainz single file in front, they caught up quite quickly to him. So I don't know. I mean, Russell got the penalty. I'm sure. I agree with it. I do, but it was just such a Sainz start. He had a pretty bad season, I think.
Max
Very
got off
inconsistent.
today. Max got off the line quicker than Carlos, and then Carlos did a weird he really tried pinning Max inside, almost to the point of contact. I was like, "Whoa, what's going on there?" And then got taken out by George.
Yeah, I think he just wanted to bring him as far to the inside because then maybe Max would go off the track, kind of not think where to brake exactly, and maybe he would go a little deep, and that's what Seitz was kind of tried that undercut, that little switchback undercut, but the Max covered it off well, and it was really very much in control for the entirety of it until towards the end. But yeah, no, good drive by him. I think throughout this race there was a lot of drivers who had good races, which is
Seb definitely had a really
usually
good
not
one.
the case. Yeah,
He just got
driver
screwed
of the
with
day.
16-second pit stop on his final pit stop, and he was on for another 6th place this weekend. And that just, yeah, and it was the day. It was the day of pit lane mishaps today.
Well, speaking of pit lane mishaps, the
I
leader
see
just
that.
spun.
I see that.
We're recording this as the NASCAR race is on, and
Simon
Marcus
kind
took a spin in the pit lane.
Yes, he did.
But I think this is a good time to talk about Aston Martin because it's early in the podcast, and early on they were 3-5 for at least the first 3 laps. They were looking to come away today with some really good points.
Yeah, and one half of it was driver error with Stroll, could be argued, and the other would be pit stop error. But Vettel did a really good job, got the driver of the day, and I saw them early in the race. I'm like, all right, this could be like they didn't see like they had the pace on par or quicker than the Mercedes, but they were definitely there or thereabouts. Like if they were on equal footing, they you never know what could maybe happen, but regardless, they were looking for a good finish with both cars. And yeah, if Vettel didn't have that pit stop, probably finishes sixth. Stroll, I think probably a little thereabouts, possibly. So yeah, they really lost out on some points here.
And speaking of Vettel, you said he had that comeback drive. That battle in the final sector on the last lap with Magnussen, that was fun to watch. That was just pure racing.
I do want to shout out Magnussen though, because he made those mediums last like what 35 laps or something at the end. Like no one else did that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was still pretty. And he was still just as fast as everyone behind him. It's just that obviously the Aston Martins were pretty quick today. So
Well, I think Haas did that because they pitted Schumacher.
yeah, and I was
Didn't
be
work
another-
at all for him. He's finished 15th. He had some track
Yeah.
limit penalties, I think, as well.
No, he didn't serve any penalties. He just, I mean, I guess he just switched to the hards, and the hards didn't work for him. I don't know.
I think he got a track limit penalty.
No, I mean, he might have gotten the black and white flag, but he never served a penalty in the pit or anything.
No, not in the pit lane. I think after.
I know
afterwards.
Schumacher got a penalty.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
it was
even on
after race
that
penalty.
didn't matter because I mean they pitted him. I mean, he was ahead of Magnussen, and they pitted him, and for whatever reason, the hards just didn't work like it did in the first stint. And I don't know. Once again, it seems like Haas strategy screwing over Mick, which I feel like it. Most of his. It seems like every chance he has to score points, something stupid happens. Think Canada, and there's been a few other weird strategy calls. So it's like. I mean, obviously, I'm a Haas guy, not just because I drive for him in TCR, but just like, I don't see how you can fault Mick for half the stuff that's happened this year. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but although I'm pretty sure when Mick pitted, he was 10th, and Yuki was pitted like the next lap to cover him off, and Yuki finished 10th. So
yeah,
why is the pace gone off the car is really the question, because the strategy worked for Yuki.
Nicky Latifi did clobber Mick at one point.
Yes.
I don't know if that had something. But it's just weird because you think, you would think if, unless Mick's just not as good as conserving his tires as Magnussen is, you would think Mick would have been, around Magnussen, give or take a second or two. Of course, he was ahead of him by about 3 seconds when he pitted, so.
Haas,
Haas is a bit of a mess, I feel like, strategy-wise. Not as bad as Ferrari.
Yeah, well, earlier on, Colin just pointed out, both Haas's were in the points. Magnussen still walked away with some. Mick did not, I believe. But this is the home race, and they kind of leaned into it with the Stars and Stripes livery and race, which is cool. What was that?
I hope they put that livery in the F1 game, by the way.
Yeah,
like they do with every other livery.
Finish out the season with it on. It looks good.
They should just have something on there with it. I mean,
they really need
they're
to
the
lean
only
into that
American
more.
team, so.
Like McLaren feels like more of an American team with Zach Brown and all the sponsors.
Yeah, Google and whatever else, Coca-Cola and all the other sponsors they have. It's McLaren is really Americanized.
Yeah, so like, I don't know what Haas is doing. Maybe is that a Gunther thing? Like, I think they should really lean into it. Obviously, the sport's exploding in this country.
They now have the European. They have like a European PayPal sponsor though too, which is good for them, but it's just kind of another un-American thing, I guess. Oh man, I thought I'd really fault them, and they needed sponsorship for a while, but
But as we're speaking of Americans, the news came out that Logan Sargent might be in the Williams next season, pending license points. That could
which
be cool.
he's almost certain to get, unless he chokes big time. But
Okay.
he could have an engine blow or something. But
Well,
bad
so I'm not familiar with the situation. I don't really follow the lower leagues. So does he just need to finish the race? Like, what's the what
There-
what does he have to do?
So the way I understand is there's a really tight points battle from like second or third all the way down to 6, right? So he can finish as high as like second and as low as I think 7th. And he needs to finish at least in the top 6 to guarantee it. If he finishes in the top 7, if he finishes 7th somehow, they can still get him the super license points by giving him like a bunch of random like practice sessions or 2 more practice sessions in the season. But basically, I think he's sitting like 4th or 5th in the standings right now, and like there's like a really tight battle from like I guess like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. Maybe a couple other spots too. I don't know, but
Yeah, so it seems most likely. I think if it was very unlikely that they would probably not announce something like that, but
And how
it's cool to
good is-
have it though. I have no previous knowledge on this kid, but it's cool to get another American on the grid in Williams, and I think that'll start to increase over time, hopefully. But we'll see. We'll see. It doesn't seem like he's like the best young talent, but because I guess if he's sitting 4th or 5th, and I've never heard of him before, so I hope he just doesn't come in and disappoint like some other rookies possibly might do in previous years. Like we've seen, there's a lot of hype, or it seems like there's a lot of hype around. Oh, first American driver, he gets here, and there's maybe some more pressure on it with 3 American races next season, and then he is given in the Williams car. See how good that car is. How is he going to do? That's my one concern. But it's cool to have him on the grid nonetheless. But the last time we had an American driver, I believe, was Rossi in the Manor car.
That's right.
And he did. He almost scored points in the USGP like way back in 2016, I think.
Yeah, granted,
Last year.
it was a manor, so it was dog crap.
Yeah, you really can't. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to it.
I've read
That's
similar
it.
takes on. Sorry,
Yeah.
but like I've read similar takes online. It doesn't sound like he's the next big thing necessarily, but also doesn't sound like he's totally undeserving of the spot. So
Right.
hopefully he can succeed, and it's gonna be fun to rally around it. I was like during the podium interviews in the race today, you had Mexican fans chanting for Checo. Like, imagine the USA chance if like an American was up in the top 5. I think it would be a lot of fun to see.
Absolutely. If he could get up, man, in the future, if he actually is able to stay in the sport for a long time and be one of those young drivers that can get into a team that's excelling and be contending, oh, absolutely. I think you can see a bunch of people, hanging on to that. So we'll see. We'll see. There's only, I think, two
He's only
seats,
21, by the way.
1 seat left. Is it only Haas to?
Yeah, it's only
It's
Haas.
Only Haas.
Between
Which I guess-
Mick and Nico Hulkenberg is what I've been hearing.
And
So-
long shot was Giovinazzi.
Yes.
Even
And
longer.
it seems like Ricardo will not be on the grid, more as a reserve or doing, some whatever he does.
Yeah. Heard maybe he'd be a reserve for Red Bull, which would be ironic, but or he was talking to somebody. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, obviously, but
No, I did see an article on it. We'll see if he decides to go back to Red Bull. I think if there ever were to be a time to go back to Red Bull, it should be now, because every other option has not worked for Ricardo, and now that they just won the constructors championship and the driver championship, it could be a good move for him in the future if they want to move away from Perez or get him into an AlphaTauri seat, and eventually most times reserve driver or people who exit the team never really enter back. So I kind of see a dead end for him.
I'm afraid I kind of see the same thing. I kind of want him to be here. I mean, I was wanting Haas to pick him up, but that obviously went out the window. And I get he wants to be in a winning
Now-
car. Haas,
Yeah.
I mean, Haas is getting a lot more money.
Yeah, well, that's kind of confuses me because, like a few years ago, when you had Grosjean and Magnussen, you had experience, right? And then they went away from that because of money, and they got in Mazepin and Schumacher, low cost, less experience. And just 1 year after that, they decided to bring back Magnussen for more money, more experience, and now they are getting more funding, but I don't know. It seems like if they were to sign Ricardo, it would be even more money. It's like they're kind of going against it was a big shift. It was like, all right, let's get rookies. And like, all right, let's get Ricardo, race winner. So
That's with the whole Russian sponsorship that fell apart. But I feel like they have a good lineup now, and obviously, I'd rather have Mick in the car than Hulkenberg. So I'm saying, I think Mick's. Obviously, you want to have a Schumacher on the grid. I get that he's crashed a lot of cars this year, but I feel like he's also shown, he's shown a great amount of improvement, I feel like, or flashes of potential that it's like, okay, this is something you can build on. Because really last year was a throwaway year. And it's just a matter of, having a more consistent car and, taking advantage of opportunities when they present themselves, which, as I mentioned earlier, Haas has not done particularly well this year.
Mick's also only 23. He has room to improve. Hulkenberg, 35. Like he is what he is. Like he's solid, but he's not getting better.
He had his chance.
I've always liked Hulkenberg, though.
I like him too. No, I have nothing against him, but he's had his chance. And if you look at guys who've hung around the sport, what is it? Giovinazzi had 3 years when he never really showed much of anything. Latifi has at least 3 years.
They usually get 3 years. The rookies that come in, they have the first year is like their rookie year. You can't really judge or leave someone in the first year. It's a lot to
especially if you're talking about last year. That car was so.
It was a terrible car.
And then the second year you start to get in a flow, kind of get to see, but usually 3 years is the sweet mark. We've seen it with Giovinazzi, and it was, I think this is Sonoda's third year.
Second, I believe.
Second, so now he has his third next year, Latifi, but Latifi's gone after 3, so it's right around that mark. And if they can get past that 3-year mark, then usually it's good. Yeah. So we'll see. I think they'll give Schumacher at least 1 more year.
I hope they do.
I hope so. Well, at least 1 more, and see what he got next year with that car, that whatever it is. But yeah, the other thing. So yeah,
money grant was fun.
It was cool to see Haas to get those points, and it was a good battle with Vettel. To get back there, pit stops for Verstappen almost lost him the win.
I'm glad they could afford a second wheel gun, though.
Yeah, did you see that guy? He was like, "Yeah, give me the backup." So how long was his pit stop? We had Vettel's was 16. Okay, so 11.
It was like 11.4 maybe.
Yeah, and when he came out of the pits, it was almost like I didn't know. It seemed pretty likely that he would still be able to win the race, given that he was on the medium tire, low fuel, and he was right behind Leclerc. And there was only I think 6 seconds or so with Hamilton out front, and he had the hard tire. I think the biggest factor was don't let, if you're a Lewis perspective, you didn't want Max to get into the DRS zone, because once he did, he would go right past. But it was interesting. But keep in mind, Red Bull's still the better car. The only reason he was in that position is because they messed up, but because they have such a good car, they're able to recover. And I think we've seen a lot of that in Mercedes in when they were dominating. Uh, they were able to afford strategy missed calls and pit stop missed calls and still win the race because the car was just so much better than everyone else. Red Bull is now in that position. They have the better car. They're able to make strategy, or in this case, pit stop issues, and still come back from it. So this was, how many races have we seen Lewis have like a pit stop issue and then lose track position or something and then come back because he had the better car? So
Remember,
it's flipped the script.
remember Hungary when he was the only one on the grid, and he's basically started a pit stop behind everybody, and he still finished. I mean, the only reason he didn't win that race is because Fernando Alonso made his car 10 lanes wide.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples you can come up with his 100+ wins or whatever he has, and yeah, it was cool. It was cool. It would have been nice to see Hamilton win it. I'm not a Red Bull or a Mercedes fan, so it would have just been nice to see him with someone different. But given the day in with the Red Bull owner, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce.
Dietrich.
There you go. Um, Passing, I think it was kind of fitting that Max came back and won in that style. Sergio off in P4, and yeah, the first time they got the constructors since what, 2013.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have two thoughts. One on like on who you wanted to win. I am a Max fan, so obviously, in my opinion, I'm happy with what happened. And like Lewis fans are gonna be mad, understandably, because like I feel like a lot of them know this was Lewis's chance to keep that win streak alive, and I don't see it happening after this.
Well,
I feel like Brazil will be really good for the
yeah,
Mercedes.
I was gonna say Brazil.
Like I
And
said, I'm biased. I don't think so. I
No,
just don't see. I think the Red Bull's too good, all around from the head from the top to the driver. It's a great car, hard to
all
beat.
things the same, I think Hamilton would have a better shot at Brazil if Max Verstappen would have a 12-second pit stop at Brazil.
That's
Just-
true.
Just for
Um,
example, I do agree that it's going to be very difficult for Hamilton to get a win. But
Yeah, I mean
like
they
today
did
when that
bring an upgrade Mercedes, so they're really the only car still trying to improve their car. So I don't know if they'll bring any more upgrades if they're allowed in the season to do anything that'll give them a little bit of an edge. But they're definitely I mean, they've had numerous races this year where they're in the conversation of a Grand Prix. I mean, he was leading laps in position to do so. So I
the
think
car
that's all you
has
can
gotten
hope
better.
for. Yeah, that's all you can hope for if you're a Mercedes fan. If you put yourself in that position enough, eventually a win will come, and that's Lewis is just, chipping away, second place, second place. It's really all progression this year for next year. What do you have next season that the Mercedes can bring?
I guess to answer your question, though, I feel like this is the first time for me personally that I've rooted for actually pulled for Lewis Hamilton in a very long time. I don't know. It's weird this year because it's the opposite of what it usually is. I always find myself rooting against the evil empire, if you will. And that was Mercedes for so long. So I don't know. It's kind of weird today being actually. Funny enough, I found myself thinking like, oh, I'm actually want Lewis Hamilton to win this race.
Yeah, I guess for me, I just like the a team that dominates. I think it's very hard for a team to go out there and win in the first place, and then for a team to do it so dominantly, it's kind of cool. I'm like, man, just keep going. I want to even if it's boring, it's like, all right, I just want to see them do it just to do it. So when Mercedes was winning, I kind of liked it just because it was like, man, they how much effort it takes to put all that in line. And now that Red Bull are doing it, it's like, okay, for sure, let's do it. It's just kind of crazy what a difference one year makes. In Formula One, it completely changes from season to season.
Yeah. I started watching amidst the Mercedes domination, which is like by default kind of how I became a Max and Red Bull fan, because that was the one chance at anyone else winning at the time. And now that the tables have turned and Max and Red Bull are the dominant team, I had a friend ask me like if Red Bull can continue this success for 6 years, no, that's which is obviously a tall task. Like, would I start rooting against them? I said I don't know. That hasn't happened yet. Realistically, probably not. I feel like at this point, like since that was the guy I attached my ship to, like I have the same idea as you of like, okay, let's see greatness now, and then I don't know, if they can continue this 5 years down the line, there's probably going to be a next great driver with a team coming for the crown, and I probably won't like them because they're threatening my guy, and then I'll probably like 2 generations down the next guy that will take the throne back. So I think it's all cyclical that way too.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I always find myself kind of rooting for Red Bull for the longest time, but I don't know. I kind of jumped off of that ship for a while because, like I said, I was attached myself to the Haas team, which has been difficult. But I don't know. It's funny. I'm a big I don't know, I'm a big Checo fan, so it's been kind of fun to watch his kind of rise. The only reason I'm a fan of Checo is because he was my teammate in F1 2016. I just picked that randomly, but anyway, it's kind of it's kind of interesting how many things work out, and obviously he's with Red Bull now, so I don't complain when Red Bull wins for sure.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of hard to hate a certain team or driver necessarily. I kind of root for a lot of different teams because it's like it seems like everybody races for one team at some point in their career, or it's such a small paddock with only 10 teams, 20 different drivers. So I don't know. I think like today is a great example of those good stories of everyone having their good day, because there's only one winner at the end of the day. But if you can win your own race, like Leclerc maybe could have been able to do, Alonso coming back, Vettel could have did a little bit more, Haas getting points, like they're winning their own individual battles, which I think is just cool to see that more teams are succeeding, because there's only one winner. So you have to have some goal in mind, because if you don't win, then you're just loser. So you got to win at something, right? So
Yeah.
cool there. But I think that's really all my big thoughts on the actual race. I don't know if anyone else had any more on that.
Yeah, so
Pretty
I
big.
took notes throughout the race, and I don't know if any of these warrants like a proper discussion, but I think a little quick fire round of some takes I had in a 1 or 2 sentence reaction. You guys down for that?
Go for it. Let's do it.
All right, rapid pace first. I'm glad we have Coda. Sure, we have Miami and Vegas. I'm glad we have one proper circuit on the calendar.
Agree.
Yes. And again, going back to the crowd, I'm glad the crowd wasn't diluted by having another Grand Prix, and I hope it continues to be that strong despite the other two, because I don't see those other two really having a whole lot of staying power. Maybe Miami, but well, we'll see.
All right, next one. Leclerc Plan E. We're talking about all the pit lane mishaps, and for once, it's really not based around Ferrari. They got lucked out with the safety car timing on their stop, but when you're talking about Plan E, and you're discounting Plan A, B, C, D, I don't think that's a good look, and I think they got bailed out.
Yeah, I didn't really hear what strategy number letter I guess they went with, but yeah, no big issues. I mean, they only had one car today, so it's reduced their
True.
chance of an issue, I guess. So.
Less to keep track of.
Yeah, they're like, all
Yeah,
right,
right.
we had double the engineers on one side of the garage. So, I mean, Sainz probably got a headset on. He was like, all right, box, question. Sainz does it too, so I don't know.
It's like box. These idiots don't know what they're doing.
Speaking of the safety car, I believe the broadcast said it was the first safety car at COTA since 2015.
Yes, that they did say that.
And staying on safety car, they started announcing to all the drivers that recovery vehicle is at turn, whatever turn it was, which I think
Turn 10 or
great
so.
move. That seems like a no-brainer. Why weren't they doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's cool. I mean, they
very
even have digital displays, so I don't know why they don't just put a GPS marker on every recovery unit.
Like
and
a little
then,
map in the corner.
yeah, and why not? Or I mean
The
or
above redundancies can be good.
intel information's good for the drivers, so yeah, they could do something like that.
Seems like a no-brainer to me. Drone footage is back. I hate it.
Yeah, they showed the sidewalk.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
90% sidewalk, 10% track.
Yeah, because you know what I
Watching-
think it is? I don't think the drone was actually allowed to go on over the track, but nonetheless, it
Yeah.
was too slow to keep up with the F1 car anyway. So what is
Even
well,
on a
the-
safety car, it was hardly keeping up.
Yeah, no drones. See, helicopter views is fine, sure.
And not only is the footage like clearly worse quality than all the other cameras, but it's like you got the spins like just flying around. I don't like that. Next on the quick hits, I had Alonso Stroll incident. I think I left this on because I had a question. How didn't that car flip over? Was it the floor of the Alpine that kept it from flipping over? Like I don't think the front wing was doing anything at that angle.
The flip like left, like laterally left,
Well,
or
I don't know how like
with the back, because
I
the
think a
back
backflip.
stayed. The back stayed. The rear wheels, I think, stayed on the ground for. I mean,
Yeah,
and
he was
if
doing like a
anything, it
wheelie
went.
or a manual.
Yeah, like yeah, it could be the side pods because they're so low to the ground. Could be
The ground
also
effect.
because it's also the ground. Yeah, like I was gonna say, the ground that since the airflow is going underneath the car, it kind of has a tendency to bring the car downward, I believe. So, but
These
in
cars
the older cars, for sure. I mean, that's an airplane crash for sure. I mean, how many times do you hear Brundle say, "Man, that could have been an airplane crash"?
Not
Today
often.
was. No, I feel like every time, whenever he says there's side to
They
side
mentioned
contact with the wheel, like could have been an airplane crash.
That might be
something.
stupid, but I haven't heard that recently. Today was the first time I heard that.
Oh no.
he did mention something like, Alonso was looking to go to the international airport or something.
I did hear that too.
Yeah, so I guess shout out to safety improvements. Gasly incorrectly served penalty. Really nothing to add. That sucks.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
next.
That's more on the team than him because the team has to count the 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, they showed the. Was it? Maybe it wasn't Gasly, but like they showed the guy with the red paddle, the big pizza paddle with a timer on it.
Yeah, I honestly don't know what he did wrong. I mean, unless there's just less than 5 seconds, which again, it's not on Gasly.
No.
Lando solid again. He got held up in that George Russell Sainz kerfuffle in turn 1 and
I like kerfuffles.
made a bunch of overtakes like you mentioned. I don't know, solid driver, not getting the most out of a not great car.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I like the word kerfuffle.
That's a
that was your list?
kerfuffle and causing a brouhaha. And I also wrote down Shaq in his car.
covered.
What a fun visual. What was that thing?
The only thing I have about that, my question is, they all got in the car and then they didn't go nowhere.
Where did they go? They just sat there. I want to see them take a lap in it.
With Shaq, like Shaq's probably like, man, I this was built for me only, not 20 Red Bull drivers, 40 Red Bull drivers. I don't know.
And that's it on my quick hits.
Now, I had a question because I missed it. What happened to Valtteri Bottas? Was it an engine?
No,
What happened? He crashed?
I don't know what corner it was, but he got beached in the gravel trap. I don't know what corner that was.
I think it was the second to last corner. That like quick left.
Quick left-hander. Yeah, it might have been.
I think he lost the rear in that turn.
And that's what brought the safety car out.
Yeah.
He got beached.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he
Okay.
beached himself.
Because I was looking, before the race, they said it was 9 races. Now it'll be 10 that he has not scored a point, and I think that's the first time since 2013. is, if I remember correctly. So he's in a pretty
Rare
bad
air.
stretch. And his teammate 13th, so possibly on the cards for some points, possibly. But yeah, I liked it. That was cool.
The
Now,
car is not that good. The Alpha is. It's not that great.
yeah, well, I was looking at the standings, and let me look at the. Hold up.
While you look that up,
Constructors.
it doesn't help that Joe has DNF'd like almost half of his races. For
That's a
one race
Ferrari
running up.
problem. Because that's
Yeah.
the Ferrari power unit.
Yeah. But yeah, so constructors towards the rear, you have Williams at 8. And I was looking like AlphaTauri is second to last. This I don't know this seems like it's adding USA, so we'll go with that. 35 for AlphaTauri. Haas with 36 and 8th. So AlphaTauri
Those 2
is
points are going to be big that they lost in the last lap there.
yeah. I didn't know they were having that bad of a season, to be honest. And I look up, and Alfa Romeo's at 52 in 6th. Aston Martin in 7th at 49. So I think Aston Martin is really looking or biting themselves today because they would have been easily ahead of Alfa Romeo. So we'll see if I think they will still get ahead of Alfa Romeo, but they'll just need to keep doing what they've been doing because as of late, last 3 races they've been scoring 4 points at USA, 8 at Japan, 12 at Singapore, while Alfa Romeo has not scored in the last 3 races, including US. So I think that'll swap there, and we'll see, where it ends up there. The only close battle you have is Alpine and McLaren, 149 for Alpine, 138 for McLaren. And Mercedes is at 416, Ferrari 469, so a little ways away, probably. I don't know. Could they overtake Ferrari?
With a few more
They all
science DNFs,
could,
sure.
yeah.
They need some help. I think Ferrari controls their own destiny in that position.
53 points over the course of 3 races. I think it's doable. But if it is, let's say it happens, that, like, man, Ferrari, you really messed up. Like, Red Bull thinking this whole season their closest competitor was Ferrari, and they didn't even finish second. They finished if that were to happen.
That would be bad.
But yeah, cool. So a few other battles in the constructors to go over in the next 3 races to keep an eye on, and
Yeah, like I agree. Like now that Max and Red Bull have wrapped it up, it takes some wind out of the sails on the excitement of a race. But there's a lot more to watch for than just who's going to win, who's P1.
oh, absolutely. I mean, you have
Midfield time.
Perez 2 points out of Leclerc. He could finish second. That'd be huge for Red Bull, and a big statement if Perez can get up to second. The gap between Russell and Hamilton, it's 218 for Russell, 198 for Hamilton. People I know will be looking at that gap. Ocon and Alonso, 78 for Ocon, 71 for Alonso. Vettel in 11th, 10 points out from Bottas. Can he get into the top 10? And yeah, so some other interesting, storylines and drivers and constructors. Like I said earlier, there's only one winner, so the other guys have to figure, their own personal goals to bring something to the table, so they can improve for next season. But
And you can follow those storylines on ESPN.
or on the podcast. I don't know where you're going with that, but yeah, sure.
Well, I'm talking about the new TV deal.
Oh, I was gonna go to that too. Yes,
Such
so
a
Sir
smooth transition, or
Charles.
so I thought.
Oh no, I missed it apparently. Sir Charles said that there's this new TV deal, and I'm interested to hear about it. I can't talk about it because I don't know anything about it. So this is when someone else should.
That's only what's been reported so far. 3 years, commercial free, and I think that ESPN they're doing their own kind of American broadcast, so it won't be like linked to Sky. So I guess my question that I was going to ask was, if they do that, who do you want to be the American F1 announcers?
Interesting. Yeah, because I noticed obviously when they go to the US, it's always on ABC instead of ESPN. Although I don't know if it was on ESPN too. I mean, not two as in the number, but as well, I should say.
ESPN and ABC, which is good, but
Yeah, it says that they extended deal through 2025. The no commercials help.
yes. Especially if you go and watch a NASCAR race right afterwards.
And then you get
It's
commercials for days.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
But
they at
just-
least have the side-by-side thing, which is fine. I'm okay with, but it's not like they fully cut it out. I mean, they
Yeah.
do, and early on they do, but about like midway through the race, they'll start to do side-by-side, which I can live with. At least give me something. I don't need to hear, give the commentate. Yeah, I mean, in a 4-hour race, I don't know if NASCAR could afford no commercials. That doesn't really make sense for them to do that. But in F1, you can't have commercials, and if you are, it's got to be split screen for like a 30-second with your big sponsor deal, and make sure Crofty gets a drink of water, and then you go back in. It's not like a 5-minute ordeal. But luckily, we don't have to think about that. It's no commercials. But yeah, the TV broadcast. I know, D'Angelo, you said you think you had somebody.
I pulled it up and then I fucking clicked out of it. Let me just pull it out again.
Well, I'll just go ahead and start watching two guys I'd like to see if we're doing two. I mean, we could be three. So I think the American broadcast team from a while back was pretty good. With who was it? Bob Barsha and David Hobbs. I think it was only. I thought they had a third guy. But anyway, I digress.
Those would be pretty good.
Yeah, well, they're all. I mean, they wouldn't bring them back because they're all like 90, 80 years old now. But
Yeah, that's the only problem.
Maybe for radio.
Alan Bestwick and Daniel Ricciardo.
Interesting.
Ricardo.
Hopefully Daniel Ricciardo would only be a 1-year thing, so obviously I want to see him back racing. But
You know who I really like as a driver analyst is Nico Rosberg. I think he
Ooh, that'd
really
be a good
gives some good insight, and he's kind of Americanized. I think not to a big point, but him and Jensen Button, I think, does a great job. But I know they do occasional work on the, I guess, the ESPN or not. Or whatever
Sky.
it is on now. Yeah, Sky or whatever. But I think Nico Rosberg does really well, and if he were to do it full time, I think he would be great as that driver analyst or that as far as main, I would have to maybe think about it a little bit. But the one you said, Alan, I think would
if
be.
you watch NASCAR in the early 2000s, Alan Bestwick was awesome at it. I feel like he could call about anything. Make it exciting.
I don't think this might not be what I want necessarily, but I could see them getting Danica Patrick up in the booth. They had her interviewing, I think, after quali. She seems like someone they'd consider.
I mean, her and Alan Bestwick were actually surprisingly good together when they did the SRX broadcast. I don't know if you guys watched that series.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be terrible, but I have a feeling, it'd get a lot of eye rolls from the internet.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want any NASCAR driver in
F1.
that booth, and I wouldn't really want anyone in IndyCar or retire that's never driven in it. So I don't mind Danica Patrick in that role. Like even in I think even in the because did we see her today? Was she at the race? Because she's usually at the Coda races.
Intro thing.
Was she? I didn't watch.
She didn't. I didn't see her after that.
Okay, because she usually does the pre-race or the post for she'll come in. But I think last season at Coda she was you know,
I think she
with-
was there
with
last
the-
season. Yeah.
Yeah, with the Max and Lewis battle, she was definitely there in the pre-interviews. Not just an interview, but the whole um, that whole sequence there. But I don't mind that.
I'd say
I
in
think
Indy,
that's cool. But
she was a pretty good like table analyst. So like a Karun Chandok or whatever. Who's the other guy that does it?
Paul DeResto.
Yeah, yeah, like she was good. She's pretty good in that role when she does it on IndyCar. But I don't know.
yeah, I wouldn't
might be
want. I wouldn't want like Dale Earnhardt Jr. or Jeff Gordon coming into the booth. They have no business.
Jeff Gordon ain't going
being-
back into the booth anytime anyway. So
They have no business being in there. I don't think in an F1 broadcast style.
God, he was terrible. But anyway, there are too many squeaky voices in the NASCAR booth.
They're too southern for
but-
me.
I don't,
They're not southerners.
Squeaky boys.
they're not southern to you, Charles.
Yeah, they're not southern to me and Charles, bro. We're literally from the deep south. So
That might be a perspective thing. But like, this might be a dumb question. Do they need Americans in the American broadcast booth? Like,
no.
there's probably other. Like, I like the British accents. I think it's part of the appeal. I think they could probably have other British or other country commentators just do an American focused broadcast.
That's what they do for the MLS, and the MLS does pretty well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't think they need an American person. Maybe just someone, maybe just a little different. I think because the
get
American.
Scott Speed.
Oh man,
Should be a mix.
that
Have
could be
one
a
American
mix.
speaking with a British person. I think that could do well.
Because you're gonna have 3 races in the U.S. next year. But what I think they need to do, and I didn't watch the pre-race or the post-race or whatever they do, the build-up to this race, but in recent years they've started to get better at that for the American audience. Americans know how to put on an event, so that whole build-up and the post needs to be Americanized when you go to these 3 races, especially when it's going to be on ABC, and you might bring in a different broadcast team just for these 3 unique U.S. races. I think that build up is crucial, and I think they've been doing good with it. So we'll see if they'll add anything extra to that.
In the Americanization of the broadcast, they could take a page out of the Turner book where they have the TNT basketball show and hockey show, where they have like Shaq, Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Ernie, and then NHL has Paul Bissonnette, Wayne Gretzky. You get a good group of. I think MLB does it too with like A-Rod and Ortiz.
Yeah, on MLB tonight.
You get a group of.
Do y'all remember
like,
the old NASCAR race day where they had like the Home Depot like whole stage set up at the track or whatever?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I remember what he's talking about.
Alright.
Chibar said no.
I was
No, it sounds-
actually in one of those at
sounds
Talladega
right.
one year.
Oh wow.
I made
I
it
was,
to.
like, I was like 10.
I made it. I made it into one at Darlington one year. I'm pretty sure. But anyway,
I was like 10 at
I like-
Talladega, and I snuck in. Just got
A setup like that. I think a setup like that would be a perfect setting for a guy like Daniel Ricciardo, like you said, to be part of the pregame show. Keep it light, crack some jokes about the race, and then just pass it off to the booth actually calling the race.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna even just do that and keep the broadcast the same, or maybe just tweaked, then I don't mind any American or not. It doesn't need to be an American, but any IndyCar or even NASCAR drivers in to some of that to an extent, because it's pre-race, it's build up, it's like it adds to it because it's different. Formula One is not an American sport, so like when you see the MLB, when you see A-Rod and Ortiz on the pre-game, they're not in the booth for that specific game, but they're on before, and most of America knows who they are, so that we've seen in the last decade how popular when the retired person, player or driver is done, they usually go into some sort of an analyst role. But for F1, there's no previous former American driver that can be on that show that all of America knows. If you put
Yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo even, they're going to be like, who is he? Unless they're an actual viewer. Daniel Ricciardo is not a household name in America. Jeff Gordon could be. It is. He is.
Yeah.
So
Get a Jeff Gordon or a Dale Jr. on the pre-race show. I would watch that.
you got to Americanize it, and start, even though it's not a pure copy paste of, Jeff Gordon didn't race in Formula One, but he has expertise in motorsports. So it's a very weird thing. Motorsports is different than, the other main sports. And
Motorsports has more similarities than all the other sports.
yeah, but to really make sure the Americans say, "Oh, Jeff Gordon's on the pregame or pre-race for F1. Okay, I'll listen." Now that viewers getting intel and more knowledge about the sport, more likely to watch the other races when they're on at 8 a.m. on a Sunday, as opposed to just 3. Today was perfect, 3 p.m. Went right head to head with NASCAR. I would love to see. Usually on Twitter, who is it? Adam Stern, I believe, on Twitter gives the updates on the attendance viewership. So we'll see how that compares between NASCAR and Formula One in
And
the
I think
American market.
I think another thing, like all of us on here, and most likely anyone actually listening to this podcast, is pretty in depth in F1 and follows it closely. But for all the Americans, which is a growing market that might know almost next to nothing about F1, a former NASCAR driver like Jeff Gordon or someone could help bridge that gap and like translate the sport to them too.
Jeff Gordon did drive an F1 car once.
There you
Yeah,
go.
he did do the driver swap, right?
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
Jimmy Johnson did one. I think was the most recent driver.
Yeah. And Tony Stewart did one with Lewis.
Yeah. So they have some expertise, and I mean IndyCar is similar too. So it's like IndyCar is the American version of it. So, and if you're going to see more American drivers on the grid, a lot of people pointed to Colton Herta. So he's in IndyCar. I think you're going to see a lot more like that. I think in the next few years, you might even see an American style F1 show weekly or whenever the race is. You might see an hour show to give you all the updates and stuff, kind of like NASCAR has the race hub uh, to go over weekly. F1 is more bi-weekly for most part, or triple headers and then 2 weeks off. But you might even see an F1 show or something like that in the future.
I think that could be cool.
Very possible.
For sure. All right. So, any final thoughts? You know what? I know we do it on the commentaries, D'Angelo. Give
Jesus.
your give. I mean, it's been a little while. Hopefully, I'll be back. Give your short summary of the USGP.
You man. Could have been better. Last 20 laps, best. That's all I got.
Nice. Anyone else?
Yeah. And in the end, it doesn't even matter.
I tried so hard and got so far.
And Lewis tried hard.
Yeah, they pulled the
He did.
hammer time today. Hammer time didn't work though. Are we gonna do race ratings? We haven't done that in a while. Chibar, you said you had your red light, green light, stop sign thing you wanted up.
No, sector.
Sector.
I'll
Oh
give
god.
that. You know what? I'll give it a purple sector.
It's
I
such a
think,
bad
like,
idea. Oh, it's so
it's
bad.
a great
Go
idea.
ahead.
I'll give that race to purple sector. I think due to the pit lane mishaps, we got Max making overtakes. Will he, won't he catch down Lewis? Will the mediums hold up all those laps? And it did. It did elevate my heart rate a little bit. I will admit that. So I give it a purple.
Okay, you might have to explain to Sir Charles your theory here, but
I think I agree with you, whatever it is, but
so you're giving it a purple sector.
what's the system? Explain the system.
Well, so I mean, like you know how in races or quali you get red, yellow, green, purple sectors.
Okay.
Rather than argue a 7.1 versus 7.2, I'm giving this race a purple sector.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if there was like a purple sector and then a purple lap. I mean, I didn't really know.
Good.
Oh,
We'll
see
look
what I
into that,
mean?
We'll look into that.
Maybe in the future we'll.
Oh,
I
we
guess
can split up the race into thirds.
no, let's just keep it in. Let's just keep it simple here. But no, I guess I'll give it a purple. Like I agree. It was, in addition to what to the finish battle, or the lead battle. There's a lot of interesting strategies going on in the midfield as well. As well as one scary moment, which got everyone's heart rate up. But and somehow Fernando still finished piece. I don't know how the car just didn't break when he landed, but anyway. But no, there's a lot of interesting strategy going on. So yeah, I'll give purple.
And D'Angelo?
I'm kind of in the middle between green and purple because there are obviously parts that make it purple, but also you can't ignore the first 25 laps. I think I'm just going to go very high end green, very close to purple.
Okay. Yeah, and for me, I kind of second that, but I'm gonna do a twist on it. I'm gonna say green sector, but trending purple because the fuel load is coming down, but it's not yet a purple.
Right, and the purple green sector was hard and convoluted.
Sure, I don't know what you just said, but go ahead. Great, good stuff.
Sounds
All right,
like we all agree though.
yeah,
like
yeah, no, yeah. All right, that was a good sequence, Chibar. Good. Yeah, so that'll do it for this episode and the United States Grand Prix review. We'll be back next week for the Mexican Grand Prix. Unless if it's a sleeper, then we'll have something else come out. But
We could do a TCR review or something.
yeah,
Since
we could do that. We have some other topics to touch on possibly, so it might be a good time to do it next week because Mexico's usually
Sleeper.
sleeper due to the elevation and engine temperatures, and I'm not ready to hear all that next week. So probably be a different episode unless it's a banger of a race. But yeah, make sure to follow TSR on all socials and definitely join the TSR Discord server where we are the most active. We have Jeddah coming up for the TCR week, so stay tuned for that. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8:45 p.m. Eastern. Thanks to Sir Charles for joining in on this one. First time in the booth, or what are we going to call it?
the table at
The table. Yeah. So welcome. Thanks for that. The paddock. Yeah, I like that. The paddock. So yeah. So good stuff there, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for
The
listening.
hospitality trailer. Signing off.